I think we're ready. You good? Same issue. All right. All right, welcome to Historic Preservation Commission for Monday, August 14th, 2017. I am Chairperson Alderman Mark Stoyer. I am here. Roger Retzlaff.
Here.
Dave Boyce.
Here.
Susan Lee.
Here.
Janine Mead is excused, and I haven't heard from Patty Olson yet. And we have Dennis Doucette. Okay, we do have a quorum. Approval of the minutes from the June 12th, 2017 HPC meeting. Do we have a motion? And the July 26th, 2017 HPC special meeting. We have a motion to that effect? Anybody?
Well, they're not in the packet, but
There were. Are the minutes not in here?
They're not in there, I don't know what Don emailed out to you guys.
So normally,
Yeah,
normally the minutes should be in there. So I would, in fact, that's a good point. I don't even know if they were in my,
They were pretty short, weren't they? Was that our special meeting that we had?
we had a special
That was
meeting,
the-
but then we had another,
Special meetings.
we had a special,
Special one.
isn't that special? Yeah, we had that meeting, and there was one before it, the June 12th meeting, which was basically pretty much about that.
I'd like to make a motion to address this issue at the next meeting.
one second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Okay. We also have Wendy Townsend here from Economic Development Authority. All right, next, we have, there's no communications, no old business. Under new business, we have a design review, and Patty Olson is here. A consideration with possible action on a sign permit application for 313 North Broadway. Do we have anybody here for that? Do you want to come forward? Yeah, you can sit up here. Yeah, thank you.
Center stage.
Yeah, we're not, All right, could you state your name then for the record?
Oh, yeah, the name Sosoyu is my husband, and we just approved the sign permit for our new restaurant.
Okay,
And
I'm just looking for your name here. Let's see.
yeah, just-
Sushi lover.
we need to have her name.
Yeah,
It's
just-
on the thing, 'cause she's
How
not gonna appear.
how do you spell your name?
My name or my husband's name?
Your name.
Your name?
Them, Z-H-E-M.
B-H-E-M?
No, Z-H-E-M,
C-H-E-M?
yeah.
Okay.
And last name S-U-N.
U-N?
S-U-N.
S-U-N.
I am, by the way,
Okay,
a sushi lover.
all right. Okay, so if you can maybe just describe briefly, okay, that used to be, what was the restaurant that it was just? Kaleidoscope? There was a Kaleidoscope restaurant. Okay. And Sushi Lover is the name?
Yes.
Okay. Did you talk with On Broadway at all, those folks there? Did they?
Because we just let the sign company do that for us.
Okay. Wendy, was there any, do you have anything to add to that, or, as far as, I thought we were at a.
Do you like sushi?
Yeah, yeah. I thought we were at a point where, when we had things on this order, especially on Broadway, or on Broadway itself, that On Broadway would weigh in
It's
as
nice
well.
when they come to the meetings, and they may not have realized that this was on the meetings. We've been trying to send them and let them know, but,
So, well, Roger, do you have something?
Yeah, I think since the building is non-contributing, I don't think it's really an issue. The sign is pretty small, so
Okay.
it's,
So it's not part, the historic district is pretty much the corner, isn't it? The Walnut, is it Walnut Dousman? Or is it historic district in that area?
It's the Broadway Dousman District.
Broadway Dousman?
This is a corner property, it's non-contributing.
This falls within the limits of it, but it's
Just
not,
barely,
it's not
yes.
barely, okay.
Everything there was built before 1940, except for this building, which was built around 1970.
Okay. Okay.
When do you open?
Because we made appointment for the health department on Wednesday, and the final inspection maybe Wednesday too, so hopefully Thursday this week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the sign.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? There you go. So all you,
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
all you have to do is stop in to our inspection department on 6th floor and
Okay.
work with them, and they will
Yes,
get you
I-
going.
yeah.
You already know that, okay.
All right, thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Zem. All right,
Thank you,
take
have a
care.
good night.
You too. All right, next we have reports. Review June and July 2017 building activity report. Was there anything that stood out?
Not much here.
I miss the old days when we had like 30 pages.
I don't miss
So
it that
you have
much.
the electrical updates.
We looked at everything. Yeah, I didn't see anything really to check
Well, I
out.
mean, not that, there are lots of tear downs.
Yeah, but we're getting to, that'll be next, right? City raise ordinance, raise permits and such. I was gonna ask, okay, well, is there, if there's no other questions, I would just ask for a motion to receive and place on file.
I've got a question we're
Yes.
just bringing up, I guess. Is there a reason why they don't put down the date that the request was filed? Because that'd be really helpful for perspective.
Okay, so,
You know, they just listed, they say, well, it's too bad these things were issued, but you have no idea what that really involves. 'Cause it
well, I
goes
think what
around-
they'll do, David, if you look on the top, it says between 6/1 and 6/30 of 2017. So it's a month.
I understand.
But you want even more specific?
That, but I would like to see if there was a way to put the date that the request was filed on each individual request.
I would have to look into that. We just pull this right out of our property software management, so I don't know if that's something that just, we can auto-generate into these reports, or if that would be an additional step we'd have to take. I'd have to look into that.
Well,
Sure.
could you do that?
It would, otherwise, it's kind of out of context. We know that these things were done last month, but it doesn't really have that much significance for us, you know?
Okay, well, it might be adding another column, you know, if anything else. I mean, there is records as far as when permits are issued and all that.
I think that'd be helpful for the average citizen too. They'd say, well, it was issued last month, well,
Well,
the meeting.
I think Stephanie will report back to us next month and let us know,
Sure.
you know, if it's feasible or not. If it isn't, I mean, if they have to tear all the software apart, I don't want to
I
do that.
wouldn't want to haul the old computer out to the curb.
No, we don't need that. There'd be a pickup charge, you know, for
It's worse.
that, or worse.
And a recycling fee.
Yeah, and a
Our
recycling
building's
fee.
coming down though.
Yeah, well,
In the June list.
all right, well, so we have,
Yeah, you're right.
so with that, we had a
Yeah,
motion.
you're right, in the June list.
Okay, everybody. We have a motion to receive and place on file with contingent upon Stephanie Hummel taking a look at that date. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that passes. Number 3, review city raise repair orders and demolitions. So, I heard rumblings, so here we go. Is there, you know, a couple things here. Jason, do you normally, I mean, a lot of times will you go out when you have a chance and take pictures of these, or are there
Yes.
pictures?
I
Have you
not
done
yet done that. no.
on these? Okay. I know you were keeping kind of consistent with that, you know, just if nothing else, a record. And Stephanie, I presume there are pictures of these available, I mean, through the
Where?
city, or, I mean,
I think you have to go on
maybe.
Google Maps or something. Street
Yes,
view.
we don't have like accurate photos of all the properties. Usually the assessor's office, when they do new assessments for the buildings, they would be the ones responsible for that, but the planning staff doesn't take care of that.
Okay, so,
What I can do though is I can go out and take pictures of these yet this week and email everyone.
yeah, I appreciate that. I guess I was looking even at the first one, 710 Hubbard. I mean, that's very close to, well, Oakland Dousman District, I was gonna say.
2 blocks west of Ashland,
So it might be just
Right,
outside
and then
near,
it's,
near Woodlawn.
maybe on the corner.
well, it
I think
depends
it's-
on where on, because,
If Woodlawn is here, Hubbard's here, it's just east of Woodlawn
Yeah.
in Oakland. I think it's between Oakland and Woodlawn.
well, it meets up with Oakland, right on the corner of where I used to
Okay,
live. So,
right.
and then it runs down past Antoinette, so it might actually, I don't know if it's in that district.
There's a cul-de-sac by farmer's market.
Right.
I would like, you know, if nothing else, if you could double check that just to see if that does fall within a historic district. I thought
It does not,
it does not.
Okay.
but,
Okay.
you know, it's an old house. I pulled them up on Google Maps a short while ago, but, you know, I'm just turning
No.
the hourglass, it seems.
Well, it just says they determined that the building is so old, dilapidated, or out of repair, and consequently dangerous, and unsafe, etc. You know, I don't know. Does anybody have any other comments about it? It sounds like it's pretty much. Look at all of these because we're gonna approve them, approve the whole item as such. Mullet Place, which is a great name.
Tremendously
They've
difficult
stole-
fish to catch.
That,
That's a garage.
It's the garage on that one.
okay. The one on Division Street, is there anything jump out at you on that?
And the garage on that one also.
Like I said, it's a notice, you know, to raise or repair it. There are times where they will fix it. So I'm just saying, with what you saw here, was there anything that just said, well, it looks like it's beyond it? Seems like the first one on Hubbard. I don't know, Jason, if you could go out and maybe, you know, take some shots and maybe just let us know,
Sure, can do.
you know, if there's any feasibility, any possibility to maintain it. Well, anything else? Does anybody have any? Otherwise, I would ask for a motion.
To receive and place on file the raise and repair orders, subject to having the photographs sent out to the members of the commission for further comment.
Further comment? Okay.
Second.
Second, Susan Lee. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye, all opposed? That passes, thank you. Okay, number 4, staff project updates, and it looks like the loan program.
At an earlier meeting, I forget which month it was, I passed out some loan program information for your review. If there were any comments or suggestions,
We didn't jump on that, did we?
sure we did.
We did, okay, good.
I thought it looked good.
Yeah,
Awesome.
all right.
I think I'm forgetting something.
I think we have to be able to adopt it at some point in time, so can we put that on the agenda for approving or something? Proposed, so we can start taking applications and, or are we,
Do we need, well, I guess, you know, we don't,
the adoption?
we're advisory at this time. I mean, we could do it through here, but then I think it has to go through another committee to do that. And I don't know if that would be through redevelopment authority possibly, or,
I could check with legal to see what steps we have to take to get the program
Yeah.
in place.
Yep.
could you? That'd be
Thanks,
great.
Stephanie.
Yeah, work with Stephanie on that.
I have been, this is tangentially related, I think it's related closely enough. Pastor Green
Yes.
at Divine Temple has been having some roofing issues.
Yes.
They have expressed some interest in applying for a loan to cover the cost of fixing their roofing issues. They are on the National Register, and they can take advantage of tax credits if they spent a lot more money than what they're going to spend. So I wouldn't anticipate tax credits coming in on this one, but that might be a good candidate for a first go-through with the HPC loan program.
Well, I know that there was a woman named Sharon Harper that also, you know, she also talked about that as well. So, yeah, but I would definitely pursue that a little bit, take a look.
Do you want to try to get this moving along a little more quickly than we seem to? Is that the issue?
So, I guess,
I wanted to make sure that the HPC was comfortable with what I proposed so far. Now, as for the actual nuts, bolts, gears of making the parts move, as long as there are no objections, I think we can just make that happen. But,
I think there was nothing that bothered us on that. I think it was pretty good.
I think the way it's set up is the HPC has to have input on approving applications.
Applications, right.
But,
Well, they'd come before this committee, but I think we're fine with that.
So, next month, we should have this as an action item to approve.
Depending on what Stephanie
Program.
learns. And
Right, but I would think we
it's all-
still have to take action to recommend to council.
do we? I don't know.
I don't know.
See,
Yeah, so we have to check to see. I don't
I'm
know.
not
what the other
sure,
loan
because we're
program-
advisory at this time.
Mhm.
Well, I
But
know
it
funding
would
was
still have to
already.
go through another committee, a standing committee, if you will. So it could be protection and welfare, it could be,
I don't know, I'd
I don't
check
know.
that.
Yeah, I would
I'm
need that
not so sure
checked.
we're as limited as that. I think we're only advisory and taking actions on specific
Well,
property.
and that's fine.
So-
If we have that cloud, fantastic.
So,
Yes, David?
I'd like to take the opportunity to officially comment that the Divine Temple has been very active in the community and been very supportive of people that were less fortunate, and everyone in general, as evidenced by their Thanksgiving Day, the way they do that in the community and some other things.
Well, they're very involved in the community. There's no question about that.
It'd be an excellent start.
Okay.
The
So
building needs help immediately
Yeah.
for the roof.
Okay.
It's not just a drip issue, there's a perpetual saturation issue.
Oh,
It's
that- To me, my understanding is the oldest church in the city. And, I mean,
a congregation, well, the,
congregation, but it had a couple different buildings and that over time.
yeah.
When was this building built? Any idea?
It's on the cornerstone, 1880 something, 90 something,
Okay,
it was to replace the previous one.
right,
I haven't dug enough into it, but it is on the National Register, so the history is documented.
right. I know the soldiers from Fort Howard used to attend that church in the 1820s and that, so it is definitely as old as anything.
Woodwork
that's
is
been-
gorgeous. It's a little heart sickening to see that it's getting wet. So,
Okay, well, I would say the sooner the better.
yeah.
All right. So, do we have a motion to that effect? Say, I don't know, this is just.
Is there a motion? It's really. just-
Well, it's just a report, so just receive it by some file.
So, I guess what I'm hearing is that there's an opportunity to get them some loan money prior to having the loan program approved.
My understanding was that the loan program has already been approved.
Oh,
The funding has been earmarked and set aside. I just don't know exactly where the ownership of pushing the start button is. You know, like, we have forms now, application forms, we have procedures, but
so that would be, the issue is making sure we can get the loans, because it sounds like this is an emergency situation with the church.
Yeah.
it's as much of an emergency as they want to make of it, I suppose. I mean, you know, how quickly water can or can't act. If it's a $5 problem today, it's a $10 problem next week.
I'd like to make a motion to invite a representative of the Divine Temple to our next meeting. And I think that would work very well all the way around.
Well, that'd be fine, but, you know, like I said, we still have to,
Sure. And just touch base.
all right.
Yeah, if they're gonna get a loan, it'd be great if we could hear from them on what the work.
When I last spoke with Pastor Green, he was getting a quote on repairs. He had received some quotes on a total replacement, which was perhaps out of reach, but the $10,000 loan limit would probably cover a good repair for a number of years.
Mhm.
And he then said that they'd probably want to pay it off more quickly than the 10-year period that we put on that, just because make sales and everything else, they might be able to take advantage of another loan for something else then.
Right. Well, I think it's good for them, it's good for us too. So I would say let's get that in the works.
Ooh, and if I could just say something out loud too, I see that the Downtown Historic District nomination did not make it on the August agenda for the Wisconsin Review Board.
It didn't.
My guess is the December go-around it may.
Okay. But it's,
It's not this month anyway.
okay, but they're aware of it.
They meet quarterly. In my experience, it's usually, if you put it in quarter one, by quarter four, you're probably gonna get your time to talk about your district.
Okay. All right. So anything else? David? You said,
Or the motion.
okay, we need, well, he has a motion to bring a representative of the Dwayne Temple. Is that it?
Yeah, just invite them to the next minute.
Okay.
Meeting if they care to.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Anything else, Jason? Otherwise, we'll move forward.
We can move forward.
Okay. Next, for informational, is the ordinance update.
That, I have been the obstruction, so, I have action to review some relatively minor changes to the proposed ordinance. I'll get that into Stephanie this week, and between her and I, we'll sort out what our next step is.
So with that being said, I know we have to vet this out with Astor District and as such. If you could work on, strategies as well, as far as how to get this out to the people, whether it's neighborhood association meetings or a library meeting.
Yeah, we have a couple ideas in mind of how we'd like to go about presenting it to the public in small doses. Get the people who live in the districts first, see what their thoughts are, bring in the neighborhood associations,
Right.
talk to the aldermen, and then from there, expand it out to a full public process to make sure
Alright.
everyone has input on it.
And make sure to keep Alderman Galvin in the loop on
Mhm.
that, so. That's all I ask. Okay. Anything else for that? So we'll just wait to hear from that.
Just a question. Was there any request from the award recipients for bronze plaques?
I have not heard anything. I don't know if we need to reach out to them.
Yeah, I think that's the idea, is that
All right.
I
Could
haven't
we,
heard back from the,
Stephanie, is that something, the award winners this year? If there's a way we could contact them, the list of the award winners, and find out if that would be interesting. What did those cost a piece? About 200?
I guess it was, so I recall
What-
about 250 each. So.
What you could do too, Stephanie, find that out, but also find out what's left in our budget, for this year for the HPC. We haven't really spent a lot of money, but,
That was usually our big annual expense,
yes,
plaques.
that, and the salary, that's it. Well spent,
Sorry.
right? You have to say that.
I keep blowing it on food and gas.
Well, you gotta live too. All right, anything else? Otherwise, that's just informational. Anything else? Otherwise, our next,
Wait, Jerry, on the floor.
oh, Jim O'Rourke.
Move to open the floor.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, go ahead. Name and address if you'd like.
Yeah, Jim O'Rourke, 2339 Oakwood Avenue. I live in Alloway. I'm on the Mayor's Beautification Committee too. About 7 years ago, I proposed to this committee actually to look into doing ground penetrating radar for the Fort Howard site to see if we could actually locate the fort. A lot of the work's been done. It looks like tomorrow at the city council meeting that the Regional Development Authority, the RDA, is going to go ahead. I think it looks like they're going to suggest selling the property and building condos on the 1.7 acres that the city still owns that was within the Fort Stockade. So what I would request this committee to do is to ask Neville Museum, Kevin Cullen is an archaeologist for the Neville. The Neville owns ground penetrating radar equipment. He knows how to use that. They do this type of thing out in the parks right now. They've done a little bit of the site, but I would request that the city pay Neville Museum to actually scan the 1.7 acres that is scheduled to become condominiums and is where the stockade actually was. And so if the city, Neville can't do it on their own because everybody's on a budget, but the city owns the property, and once the condos are built, that's it. So my vision is, from the very beginning, has been to create both a technology and a history and an art component to history and historic preservation. And by at least doing this ground penetrating radar and having a 3D subsurface map of where, like, what an excavation might have looked like, you can then create, over the next 3, 4, 5 years, in virtual reality, the fort there. We're not going to do bricks and mortar, but you can go over to Heritage Hill, you can take pictures of Heritage Hill, you can take pictures of the property on Maple Street, and then you can drop that onto where those sites actually were. And as long as you have the baseline data and the ground penetrating radar, which goes down, 6, 8, 10 feet, you can have a general idea of where those building foundations were, and so you can have something authentic. From an economic development standpoint, there are people who are interested in forts. Last month, I just visited the fort site at Mackinac, and I went around the lake and up to Mackinac. I drove down to Detroit, and then I went to the fort, Dearborn in Chicago, on Michigan Avenue, and then down towards Peoria, where the mission was that Marquette discovered the American West by coming through Green Bay. So there's this great story, and we have one chance to at least do a scan and create something that people, when they come to our Packer games, have something else they can do to come down and see where it all started. So it starts with the ground penetrating radar and at least having a good authentic map.
Jim, I was going to ask you, didn't they do some of that already?
No.
I thought there had
They
been
did a
something
little
like
bit outside of, because they didn't do the fort site. They did the site outside the stockade and close to it, but they didn't get into the meat of the stockade.
So what, in your estimation, what would something like this cost? Only cost and also maybe time-wise?
My feeling is that they can, when I was looking at it privately, okay, because Jeff Gialdino and I, we looked at it privately, the guys were telling me it's about $5,000 an acre, okay? And it's a 1.7 acre site, it's, $8,000.
Yeah.
That was in the private sector. The guys that I was working with didn't want to do it because they knew that they'd be up against Walmart, and they said that they didn't want to go against Walmart. So but now all those objections have gone away, and Neville, when they were purchasing their equipment, they thought that they'd be able to rent themselves out at about $90 an hour. I think that was the number that they had used when they got the equipment used from Milwaukee Public Museum. They're doing something on the Packers training ground in August or September up at Rockaway Lodge, up at Bayshore Park. So they do this as part of their mission, but I think that it would be money very well spent by the city to, as part of the development project, to go ahead and do the ground penetrating radar and not worry about the full excavation, because that could take, years and years and years, and you don't want to do an archaeological excavation on the old fort, that would slow it down. But if you can do the ground penetrating radar, get the 3D map.
This wouldn't delay the development.
Right, so it's something you can get done in a week.
Has anybody considered approaching the developer?
The city currently owns it, okay? So the developer has allowed Neville to do it on their portion of the property, okay? Titletown Brewery, DDL, has allowed them to do it, kind of skirting the main portions of the fort. But the real nuts and bolts, the real important stuff, is on the land that the city owns. And the city didn't have ownership of it when it was still the Larson Green project, so that's why it never really got done. So if the city went ahead and asked, Neville, the county should do it anyway, because it's part of the county's history too, okay? But it's the city owns the property, and I think that it'd be something that you can bring the technology. You can imagine, does everybody know what ground penetrating radar is? Yeah. So you know what you have underneath. With the virtual reality that's coming out now, you can drop, the kids can drop buildings onto different sites, the Google Earth and the whole bit. You can recreate it without having to spend $1 million. Or like Heritage Hill spent $3 million preserving their physical structure, for $10,000 or $20,000, at least you can get a baseline here.
Well, it's Roger? Or David?
There's a lot of situations where they have to go through the commission to sign off, but they don't have to go through this commission then to sign off on the erection of the condos before the
No.
survey is done.
Well,
Or do they?
that's a question I've
That-
got.
I'd like to
Okay.
refer,
First, I need to ask Jim,
I want to refer that to
Different
legal.
so.
All right.
I don't want to slow down their thing, but you're the best group to handle this type of thing. So the request should be coming from you guys. And my feeling is you could do it in a week. If you called up Neville and you talked to the director and said, could you schedule a week some point, this fall? They could do it as long as it didn't impact their budget.
So we should be able to request that they have a priority on the survey.
Correct.
So that they get it done almost immediately if
It'd
possible.
be nice if there was
And then
shared
we wouldn't
costs.
have to worry about interfering with anybody.
Right. Yeah, so it's very non-intrusive, it's always been non-intrusive. It's, a couple days, and they look like lawnmowers going over, the scanners look like lawnmowers, so it's not a big deal.
It's a major project.
And
It should be
how
done.
deep will they go?
I think that, 8, 10 feet.
Has anybody done a topographic analysis to make an assessment of whether or not there's so much fill
Yeah.
over the old site?
Yeah.
And what's the result of that?
So
How much fill is
the
there?
old site before was a railroad, so the railroad yard is the new project that's going in, okay? When it was a fort, it was on a slight mound. And so when the railroad came in, they scraped off the top, they did some cut and fill. They cut off the top and they pushed it off down to the side. So typically what I saw up at Mackinac, when they were doing fill and you're making it over, you're going to, you're gonna push in the wall. So it's not gonna, you're not gonna see the straight wall, you're gonna see the wall, and then the top rocks are pushed in and then they fill dirt on top of it. It's not as pretty as you'd like it to be, not like Legos, but it's those lines.
I guess what I'm wondering is how much was cut down? Where was the fort
Okay.
in elevation?
Okay,
And what is the site now, or what was it when it was a railroad yard?
okay.
Because if it's over 6, 7 feet that they cut,
Right.
there's nothing there anymore.
Correct.
It's just nothing there.
So the western wall, which is going to be, it's over close to where the high tension wires are, and that would be the western portion of it. They cut that down a lot, because that would have been where the hill is, and then they would have filled in more as you get closer to the railroad tracks. So the odds are is if you're gonna find, and then also, you're gonna have the building foundations and then also the fireplaces. That's the stuff that tended to survive. There were fires, and if you look at some of the old, the 3D maps, there's still some they drew fireplaces that had survived some of the fires in there. So that's,
Well, you know, I was gonna ask maybe Wendy, if you had a moment. You know, I'm just trying to think of from the city standpoint, where, you know, if you find that this would be any advantage to try to do something like this. I think it's an interesting project. I think that it would be nice to do something like this, but I'm looking at the cost. You know, even though
it's
it.
up to $10,000, and I
Right,
think that,
right, but I'm just
if
saying.
there's an appetite for it.
Mhm. And just looking at what the best bang for the buck would be, if that's something that, I don't know, just at first blush, is that something that you think if we went through various committees, they might look at that, or, I don't know? That's
I'm
kind
not
of,
aware of any particular group that's been
Yeah.
supportive of that idea. I don't
So
know.
my feeling is that if, you know,
we could approach the developer, and I know the developers.
Right.
We can talk to them about that. I think they're pretty amenable, they were amenable for the half acre, but, you know, to go to 175,
you don't need the 175, so the 1 acre, the 1 acre is the 1 acre, and it's gonna be flat, and
but there was a request for 1.75, but that would have been, let's say, if that house was moved from Maple.
And
Correct.
I looked into it, and that 175 number, because I talked to Lynn about the 175 versus the 1/2, and I had always thought that it was 1/2, and she said the 175 was the amount of land that is still on, that was within the stockade, still owned by the city, but what I had always remembered was just the half acre being talked about.
Right.
So the 175 is actually what should be scanned, because that's, I would call it 2 acres, because you need to get a little bit of a buffer around where you think it is.
And how big was the fort originally?
3 acres.
3 acres. And you're thinking, I mean, the way things are developed now, though, it would be hard to scan some of that, correct? Because
You'll-
of the retention
you will-
pond and things.
If in a perfect world, it would look like a Lego set, you know, when you scan it, but it doesn't. But it looks, you will be able, my belief is that if you scanned it, and then there's all the analysis that they run it through their computers too. So you scan it first, you get the base information, and they will show where the anomalies are. And then we also know, the county has already done overlays where we think the buildings are. So if you take a look at where you think the buildings are from the county overlays that we've done, from the maps that have been out there, the surveys, and then you do an overlay with the ground radar, and you line them up, you will see, you will see, I know that you'll see some of the walls, particularly closer, as you get closer to the railroad tracks.
Well, I would suggest, I give you my card, and then we have city council tomorrow night. If you put something together, maybe email it to me, I can put it in communication
It's
as
gonna be a
such.
boring meeting anyway tomorrow night, so.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing going on.
Might as well have some meat on the agenda.
I did, and I appreciate it, and you guys do a great job. I've been coming to you guys, you know, for about 7 years,
Well-
not a lot lately, but, you know.
No, and that's fine, just, I would request that,
I'll
send
go
that
ahead
to
and
me,
send
and
you an
I'll,
email.
you know, yes, maybe no, but
Okay,
we could definitely
Okay.
look to it.
thank you very much, I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Before you leave, this topic came up last Monday at the mayor's
Beautification.
beautification
Is there-
thing, and there was a lot of talk about, you know, requesting the whole property for that purpose, and all the archival activities and stuff, but it's probably a more issue.
Right, so I think that a pragmatic approach says what is feasible, you know, you know, instead of a wish list, you just say, okay, this is what you can have. Okay, we'll allow you to look at the land, we'll allow you to scan it, we'll provide funding for, you know, running the experts to run it through, and, you know, the money that you give Neville is money well spent, okay? So you know, the moving of the Maple Street building, that'll stay there, and those guys will take care of the Maple Street building.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay, thanks.
thanks again,
Thank you.
Jim, thank you. Before we adjourn,
Return to orders.
oh, yeah, okay, do we have a second? To come back to
Second?
second, okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, before we close, I was gonna ask Stephanie, I was gonna ask you something. I had it in my mind.
Well, let me ask this question.
Yeah, go
first.
ahead.
Some months ago, we,
Oh, for the minutes, just make sure that, you know, we somehow get
That
those
must just
minutes.
been an oversight by Dawn, so we'll put them in the next packet.
You Just make sure
They're
that we,
usually in there.
yeah, they are, so just make sure we get this. Okay, go ahead.
we designated the Fort Howard site as a historic site in the city, which would mean that any development on the property needs to come before us for review. So,
You should tell them, you should give back to
that's
the
a check
community a
off.
favor.
The whole point of that was to, so that any development would in some way be encouraged to consider the fort and provide some sort of recognition of its existence on
Okay.
that site.
Well, I think what you request would be part of something like that. Yes, in a way?
Yeah, so.
Okay.
I
All right.
would like to make sure that administratively, that action will be taken.
Could you do me a favor, because I've been reading a lot of stuff lately, but could you send me an email to that effect for tomorrow?
Okay.
I appreciate that, because then I can combine that and bring it up at council. I'll do that. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? Do
So moved.
we have a second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Our next meeting is September 11th, 2017. Thank you. Are you around for like 2 minutes? Can I talk? Yeah. Let's go.